Hey everyone, today we're going to tackle something that really touches all of us, the connection between getting older and cancer. You see, as we're all living longer, this strange thing is happening around the world. It's a paradox, really. More older people are getting diagnosed, but at the same time, fewer are actually dying from it. So let's dig in and try to make sense of this global story.
Now, all of this insight comes from an incredibly sharp review by Dr. Reza Lankarani. He's a general surgeon, the founder of the Surgical Pioneering newsletter and podcast series, and he's on the editorial board for the Genesis Journal of Surgery and Medicine. So basically, his analysis is what's letting us see the big picture through all this complicated data. Okay, first things first, let's get one term straight. Neoplasm. It sounds complicated, but it just means any kind of abnormal cell growth. Sometimes it's benign, not cancer, and sometimes it's malignant, which is cancer. It's super important to know this because the study we're talking about looks at the whole spectrum, which gives us a much more complete picture of what's going on.
And that brings us right to the heart of the paradox. Get this. Between 1990 and 2021, the rate of elderly people getting these neoplasms actually went up. But, and this is the wild part, the death rate from them went down by almost the exact same amount. So, more diagnoses, but fewer deaths. How does that work? What is really happening here?
Well, to understand that, looking at the global average just isn't enough. We have to zoom in. This really is a tale of two very different cancers, and they perfectly show the two opposing forces at work.
So, on one hand, let's look at what's pushing those diagnosis numbers up. A prime example is non-melanoma skin cancer, or NMSC for short. The data shows that over those 30 years, its incidence rate just shot up. It's a huge reason why the total number of cases has been climbing. But then you flip the coin. On the fewer deaths side of the paradox, we have a huge success story: stomach cancer. While other cases were on the rise, the death rate for stomach cancer saw one of the biggest drops of all. This is fantastic news, and it points directly to huge leaps in how we detect it, how we treat it, or maybe a bit of both.
So, it's clear that different cancers are on different paths, but the story gets even more layered when you add geography to the mix. It turns out, where you live plays a massive role in your health outcome. When it comes to cancer, our world is very, very divided.
And to measure that division, researchers use a really neat tool called the Socio-Demographic Index, or SDI. All it is a score that tells you how developed a country is based on things like its income, education levels, and fertility rates. All you have to remember is this: a higher SDI means a more developed country. Keep that in mind because it's key for what we're about to see.
And wow, just look at how this plays out in the real world. This chart is stark. In a high SDI region like North America, the mortality rate dropped. That's great progress. But then you look at Central Europe, and the rate actually went up. And in southern sub-Saharan Africa, a lower SDI region, it went up even more. It's a harsh truth. Wealth and development are directly linked to better outcomes.
Okay, so we've covered the what and the where, but now it's time to get to the really big question: why? What are the actual forces driving all these changes we're seeing?
So, if we ask why the total number of cases is rising, it's actually pretty simple. Look at this chart. The biggest piece of that pie, population growth. There are just more of us on the planet, period. The next biggest factor is that we're living longer, into old age, when the risk is naturally higher. And that smallest sliver, that's everything else, all the shifts in specific risk factors in healthcare. And when we drill down into those specific risk factors, well, we start to see some very familiar faces. Smoking is still, by a long shot, the #1 culprit. No big surprise there. But it's definitely not working alone. High blood sugar, high BMI, drinking alcohol, even breathing polluted air, they're all major players. These are the things public health is always trying to get us to manage better.
All right, so when we put all these pieces together, what does it actually mean for us? For our future? Well, while we've made some incredible progress, this data also points to a new threat that's emerging fast, one we really need to start paying attention to.
So let me just ask you, based on everything you've just heard, what do you think is the single fastest growing risk factor for neoplasm deaths over the last 3 decades? Take a guess. I bet the answer will surprise you.
The answer, believe it or not, is drug use, and the numbers are staggering. Globally, deaths from neoplasms linked to drug use shot up by over 134%, and in high-income regions, it's an absolutely mind-blowing 246% increase. Now, to be clear, this can include the complex side effects from powerful medications that save lives, but might also suppress our immune systems. It highlights a totally new kind of challenge for modern medicine.
Okay, let's do a super quick recap. Here are the key things to take away. First, the neoplasm burden on older folks is high, and your odds depend a lot on where you live. Second, we're seeing more skin cancer diagnoses but fewer deaths from stomach cancer. That's our paradox. Third, aging itself seems to hit our gut and our lungs the hardest. Fourth, smoking is still public enemy number one. And finally, drug use is the new risk on the scene, and it's growing faster than anything else.
And all of this leads to one final huge question, doesn't it? We've done something amazing as a species. We're living longer lives than ever before. But that very success brings this new, complex challenge. So how are we going to adapt our healthcare systems, our public policies, and even our own personal choices to make sure those extra years are also healthy years?
It's a lot to think about. And we have to remember, this whole explainer was only possible because of that profound review by Dr. Reza Lankarani. His work is what helps us make sense of these huge, complex global trends. Now, if you want to go even deeper and explore more of the details, you can access the Surgical Pioneering Podcast Series application. The link is right there on your screen. Thanks so much for joining me today.